What does it look like to reach your destination, but not in the way you expected? What if the place you were called to becomes the place where you are confined? And how can someone be restricted on the outside, yet still completely free on the inside? After months of hardship, storms, shipwreck, survival, and unexpected detours, Paul's journey continues. The island of Malta had been a place of recovery, a pause after chaos, but it was never the final destination. Rome was the center of power, the heart of the empire, the place where decisions shaped the world. And now, after everything he had endured, Paul was finally on his way there. After 3 months on Malta, the journey resumed. This time they boarded a different ship, an Alexandrian vessel that had wintered on the island. It was marked with the figurehead of the twin gods, a symbol of protection according to Roman belief. But Paul's protection had never come from symbols. It had come from something unseen, yet undeniable. The voyage continued with stops along the way, Syracuse, Rhegium, and then finally Puteoli. At each place, the journey moved closer to its final point. But something remarkable happened at Puteoli. Paul found believers, people who shared the same faith, the same message, the same hope. They welcomed him, invited him to stay, and for 7 days, Paul experienced something different from the journey so far. Fellowship, connection, encouragement. Even as a prisoner, he was not alone. And then the journey continued. As Paul approached Rome, news spread ahead of him. Believers from the city came out to meet him along the road, at the Forum of Appius and the 3 taverns. Imagine that moment. After everything he had been through, after all the uncertainty and struggle, people were waiting for him, not to judge, not to accuse, but to welcome. And when Paul saw them, something changed within him. He thanked God, and he took courage. That's important. Even someone as strong as Paul needed encouragement. Even someone with deep faith could be strengthened by the presence of others. Because the journey of life is not meant to be walked alone. Support matters, connection matters, and sometimes the right people at the right moment can restore strength you didn't even realize you were losing. Finally, Paul arrived in Rome, but not as a free man. He was still a prisoner. However, something unusual happened. Instead of being placed in a standard prison, Paul was allowed to live by himself under guard. A soldier was assigned to him, but he had a certain level of freedom. This was not complete confinement, but it wasn't freedom either. It was somewhere in between. And this is where the story takes a powerful turn, because most people in that situation would focus on what they had lost: freedom of movement, independence, control. But Paul focused on something else: opportunity. 3 days after arriving, Paul called together the local Jewish leaders. He didn't wait. He didn't withdraw. He didn't allow his circumstances to silence him. He stepped forward. He explained his situation clearly. He told them that he had done nothing against his people or the customs of their ancestors, yet he had been handed over to the Romans. He shared that the Roman authorities found no reason to condemn him, but because of opposition, he was forced to appeal to Caesar. And then he made something clear. He was not there to accuse his own people. He was there because of hope. The hope of Israel, he said. That was the reason for his chains. Not crime, not rebellion. Hope. The leaders responded with curiosity. They had not received any official reports about Paul, but they had heard about this movement, the followers of Jesus, and they wanted to hear more. So a day was set, and many came. From morning until evening, Paul spoke. He explained. He testified. He reasoned with them, using the scriptures to show who Jesus was and why it mattered. This was not a casual conversation. This was a full day of teaching, sharing, and engaging. And just like before, the response was divided. Some believed, others did not. This moment reflects a reality that has always existed. Truth does not produce the same response in everyone. Even when presented clearly, even when explained thoroughly, people respond differently. Some are open, some are resistant. And that's not always about the message. Sometimes it's about the heart. Paul didn't force anyone to believe. He presented the truth and allowed each person to respond. But as the discussion came to an end, Paul shared something that carried weight. He spoke about how, throughout history, people had heard but not understood, seen but not perceived. Hearts had grown dull. Ears had become hard of hearing. And then he made a statement that marked a shift. God's salvation has been sent to the Gentiles, and they will listen. This wasn't rejection, it was redirection. The message would continue, the mission would expand, and nothing, not chains, not opposition, not misunderstanding, would stop it. The story then enters its final phase. Paul remained in Rome for 2 full years. 2 years, under guard, limited in movement. Yet something incredible happened during that time. He welcomed everyone who came to see him. Everyone. No restrictions on who could visit, no barriers to who could hear. And he preached, boldly, openly, without hindrance. Think about that. A man in chains, preaching without hindrance. How is that possible? Because true freedom is not always about physical conditions. It's about purpose. Paul's body was confined, but his message was not. His mission was not. His voice was not. He used what he had, the space he was given, the people who came, the time available. And he continued, day after day, person after person, sharing the message of the kingdom of God, teaching about Jesus, encouraging those who listened, challenging those who questioned, and building something that extended far beyond the walls of his confinement. This is where the story becomes deeply personal, because it challenges a common belief. That you need perfect conditions to fulfill your purpose. That you need complete freedom, ideal circumstances, and full control to make an impact. Paul had none of those things, and yet his impact continued, maybe even grew. Because sometimes limitations clarify purpose. They remove distractions, they focus attention, they create a space where what truly matters becomes the priority. Paul didn't wait for a better situation. He used the one he had, and that made all the difference. This final chapter of Acts does not end with a dramatic resolution. There is no courtroom verdict, no detailed outcome of Paul's appeal to Caesar. Instead, it ends with a picture. A man in a rented house, under guard, speaking freely, teaching boldly, continuing his mission. It's an open ending, and maybe that's intentional, because the story is not just about Paul, it's about what continues. The message didn't end there. It moved forward. Through others, through time, through places far beyond Rome. And in a way, the story is still being written. Through anyone who chooses to carry the same message, the same purpose, the same courage. Paul's journey to Rome was not about arriving in comfort. It was about arriving in purpose. And even in chains, he fulfilled it. That's the legacy of this story. Not the hardship, not the imprisonment, but the faithfulness, the consistency, the refusal to be silenced by circumstances. Because in the end, it's not about where you are. It's about what you do with where you are. Thank you for watching this video. If this message encouraged you to see your own situation differently, don't forget to like, follow Holy Path Insights, and share this video so others can be inspired too.